A sealed orange capsule sits 100 feet above the North Sea, platform burning below. The safest thing you can do is let go and fall. And then the engineers built something that changed offshore survival forever. Traditional lifeboats hung on ropes beside the rig, lowering crews slowly, right next to the fire and the steel. In 1980, the Alexander L. Killen capsized. 123 people died. 8 years later, Piper Alpha exploded. 167 men were killed. What if the boat just fell? The freefall lifeboat's early design concept would later become the exact thing that redefined offshore survival entirely. But in the years before Piper Alpha, it was just an engineering idea on paper. Picture a bullet, not a boat, a sealed, armored, self-contained projectile designed to carry 60 people away from a burning platform in under 60 seconds. That is what a free-fall lifeboat is, and the engineering behind it is far more precise than most people on the outside ever realize. The capsule is mounted 20 to 30 meters above the waterline, 65 to 100 feet, on a sloped launch ramp at the stern of the rig. The angle matters. Every degree is calculated to carry the boat clear of the platform structure on release, because even a glancing blow against a steel leg at launch speed ends the mission before it begins. The hull is fully enclosed and pressure sealed. No open decks, no exposure to flame, blast overpressure, or toxic gas. The exterior is fire rated to survive a minimum of 8 minutes of direct flame contact. The windows are reinforced. The seals are tested at pressure. The self-righting design is one of the most critical features most people never hear about. When the capsule hits the water at speed, it plunges partially beneath the surface, rolls, and then hull geometry and ballast bring it back upright automatically. No crew action required. Impact speed runs at approximately 70 kilometers per hour, 40 to 45 miles per hour. You are hitting the water at highway speed. The seat and harness system absorbs 3 to 5 jams of deceleration force, distributing the load across chest and shoulders to prevent spinal injury. A standard freefall lifeboat carries 50 to 70 people. The launch sequence involves a single release mechanism. One action, gravity does the rest. I mean, think about that for a second. Decades of engineering, thousands of test drops, international regulatory frameworks, all of it converges on a single lever pull, and 60 people drop away from a burning platform in under 2 seconds of free fall. And then the engineers made the one decision that changed everything. They stopped trying to make the drop gentle. They designed the crew to survive the violence instead. But this wasn't just about the lifeboat anymore. It was about every offshore worker who would ever board a platform and need to trust that the orange capsule at the stern could bring them home. There is a specific kind of silence that fills the capsule in the seconds before launch. It is not peaceful. It is the silence of 60 people doing exactly what they were trained to do, moving fast, saying nothing, trusting the machine. Boarding is not orderly in the civilian sense. It is choreographed. Every crew member has a seat assignment. They know their number. They know their harness. Muscle memory takes over the moment the alarm sounds, because that is the entire point of every drill they have ever run. There is no talking. There is no hesitation. You board, you sit, you lock in. The harness system crosses the chest and locks across both shoulders. The headrest is padded and positioned to brace the skull on impact. You are not just sitting, you are integrated into the structure of the capsule. Your body becomes part of the system. Inside the sealed hull, the lights dim. The only sounds are the alarm bleeding through the hull plating and the sound of your own breathing. You cannot see the fire. You cannot see the water. For some workers, that is the hardest part, the not seeing. For others, it is the only thing that makes it bearable. The ramp releases. 1 to 2 seconds of freefall, and then the bow hits the water. The force travels through the hull, through the seat frame, through the harness, and through your entire body simultaneously. It is not a splash, it is a wall. 3 to 5 Gs of deceleration in a fraction of a second, and then the capsule is underwater before hull geometry and ballast drive it back upright. The self-righting sequence takes seconds. The engine starts. The crew lead counts heads. From the moment the first person boards to the moment the capsule is clear of the rig's exclusion zone, the target is under 60 seconds. Not a minute and a half. Not 2 minutes. 60 seconds. Because in a real emergency, 60 seconds is the difference between clear water and a debris field. The drop is violent. It is supposed to be, because the alternative, staying on the platform, is worse. Nobody boards a free-fall lifeboat for the first time during an actual emergency. That is the entire architecture of offshore survival training. You have already done this before the day it counts. Every offshore worker completes mandatory survival and evacuation training before their first deployment. That is not a suggestion. That is a regulatory requirement enforced across every flag state operating in serious offshore environments. You do not set foot on a platform without it. But here's the detail that everyone missed at the time. Early training programs focused on knowledge. They taught workers what to do. The problem was that under real stress, knowledge collapses. What survives is repetition. What survives is muscle memory. Modern offshore drills run on the actual rig. They are timed. They are unannounced. They run in full personal protective equipment, in daylight, and in the middle of the night. Because emergencies do not schedule themselves. Your seat assignment is fixed. You know your number before you ever hear a real alarm. You know the path from your bunk to that capsule without thinking about it, because you have walked it dozens of times. Repeated exposure to the capsule environment is deliberate psychology. Familiarity is the direct antidote to the freeze response. When the brain encounters something it has processed before, even something terrifying, it routes the response through habit rather than panic. That is the goal. Not bravery, not toughness, familiarity. After a series of drill accidents in the 1990s and 2000s, the International Maritime Organization tightened training regulations significantly. Workers were being injured during simulated launches because the simulations were not realistic enough to build genuine competence, but realistic enough to cause harm when procedures broke down. The IMO responded by mandating that training include realistic launch simulations under controlled conditions with proper oversight and equipment standards. The goal has never changed. When the alarm sounds for real, your body moves before your mind catches up. Before any free-fall lifeboat ever carries a living crew, it carries instrumented dummies, dozens of them, dropped repeatedly at full height in conditions that simulate the worst the North Sea can produce. Sensors embedded in those dummies measure G-force at the head, chest, and spine. They measure hull stress at every structural joint. They measure water ingress at every seal. Engineers analyze every drop, looking for the failure mode they have not found yet, because the one they have not found yet is the one that kills someone. Drop tests run at full launch height in sea states up to Force 6 conditions. That is, winds of 22 to 27 knots, wave heights pushing 3 meters. Not calm water, not ideal conditions, the conditions that exist when things are already going wrong. De Norska Veritas, DNV, governs the classification rules for every structural weld, every window seal, and every release hook on a certified free-fall lifeboat. These are not guidelines, they are class rules. A weld that does not meet DNV specification does not exist on a certified vessel. In 2011, the International Maritime Organization issued MSC.1, Circular 1392, establishing new global standards for release and retrieval systems. The trigger was a pattern of hook failures during drills, hooks releasing unexpectedly while boats were being recovered, dropping loaded lifeboats from height. Workers died. The IMO responded with binding requirements that no flag state could ignore. Manufacturers like Viking Norsafe run thousands of simulated drops across a vessel's certification lifecycle before it is approved for crew use. Thousands, not dozens. The free-fall lifeboat celebrated its certification. They shouldn't have, because the real test is the one that hasn't happened yet, and the engineers know it. Certification means one specific thing. This capsule can fail every way we can imagine and still bring the crew home. Every roughneck who walks past the lifeboat station on their way to the drill floor does the same thing. They glance at it, just a glance, and then they keep walking because the work is what pays and the lifeboat is what you do not want to think about. That is the paradox at the center of offshore life. You train for catastrophe so that you can function normally in its shadow. You build the mental architecture for the worst day of your life so that every other day feels manageable. It is not denial, it is a very specific kind of discipline. Piper Alpha survivors describe the moment of decision in terms that are almost impossible to process from the outside. The choice between jumping 60 to 80 feet into burning seawater or staying on a platform that was actively destroying itself. Several men jumped, many did not. The ones who waited for a system that was no longer functioning did not come home. The free-fall lifeboat is designed to eliminate that decision. The system decides the method. You execute the sequence. You survive. There is no standing at the rail calculating odds. There is a seat, a harness, and a release mechanism, and the engineering has already made the choice for you. That's not metaphor. That's the actual psychology of offshore survival. The lifeboat is the reason you can sleep. Mental trust in that equipment is built through visible maintenance schedules, regular crew inspections, transparent fault reporting, and the knowledge that the person who checked the release hook last week is sitting 2 seats to your left right now. Trust is a team structure, not a feeling. Up to this point, the offshore industry had been building confidence in the system. That was about to flip, because confidence without accountability creates exactly the kind of complacency that gets people killed. The Norwegian government inquiry into the Alexander L. Kielland disaster did not produce polite recommendations. It exposed systematic failure, equipment that had not been maintained, procedures that had not been followed, and an industry that had treated lifeboat readiness as a compliance checkbox rather than a survival system. 123 people were dead. The industry was forced to confront what complacency actually costs. Piper Alpha in 1988 produced the Cullen Report, 106 specific recommendations delivered to the UK government and the offshore industry. The overhaul of evacuation systems was not peripheral to that report. It was central. Lord Cullen's findings made clear that the existing systems had failed not because of bad luck, but because of structural inadequacy. Free-fall lifeboat adoption accelerated across North Sea platforms in the years that followed. The real question is, what happened behind closed doors during the 1990s and 2000s when a wave of drill accidents began revealing that even the new systems had critical flaws? Release hooks were triggering unexpectedly during recovery operations. Lifeboats loaded with crew during drills were dropping from height. Workers were being killed by the safety equipment itself. The industry had replaced one failure mode with another. The International Maritime Organization responded with successive rounds of regulatory tightening. Flag states that had previously operated with significant autonomy found themselves bound by binding global standards. No opt-outs, no national exemptions. The IMO's 2011 circular on release and retrieval systems was the direct result of documented deaths during training evolutions. The pattern has never changed. Disaster produces investigation. Investigation produces redesign. Redesign produces a new standard. And the next standard waits for the next failure to reveal what it missed. Offshore safety is not written in policy documents. It is written in the losses. The next generation of free-fall lifeboats does not look dramatically different from the outside. The orange hull, the sloped ramp, the single release mechanism, those remain. But inside the engineering, the changes are significant. Composite hulls are replacing traditional fiberglass and steel constructions, reducing weight while increasing structural resilience. GPS emergency beacons are now integrated directly into the hull rather than carried as separate equipment, because separate equipment gets left behind. Auto-inflation sea anchors are built into the system to stabilize the capsule in high sea states after launch, preventing the hull from being driven back toward the rig by wind and current. Floating production storage and offloading vessels, FPSOs, are now standard fitted with free-fall systems. This matters because FPSOs are not fixed platforms. They are moored vessels operating in some of the most remote offshore environments on Earth, often with larger crew complements and more complex evacuation geometries than a conventional rig. The freefall system had to adapt to that environment, and it has. Research programs are actively developing helicopter emergency egress systems, inflatable evacuation slides for scenarios where the lifeboat station itself is compromised, and hybrid escape systems that combine elements of freefall launch with controlled descent for structures where the geometry makes a pure freefall trajectory impossible. Digital twin simulation technology now allows engineers to model every conceivable failure mode: hull breach, hook malfunction, sea state interaction, crew loading variation, before a single physical prototype is built. This compresses the development cycle and catches failure modes that physical testing alone would miss. Regulatory bodies are pushing toward real-time monitoring of lifeboat readiness. Sensors embedded in the release mechanism, the hull, and the harness systems would flag maintenance issues automatically, removing the human inspection gap that has historically allowed faults to go undetected between scheduled checks. The goal has not changed since 1980. Every person on that platform comes home. That orange capsule mounted at the stern of the rig, 100 feet above the water, is not a last resort. It is a promise. A promise made in steel and composite and fire-rated polymer, tested at Force 6 sea states, certified by DNV, and backed by every regulatory overhaul that followed. Every disaster that made the industry confront what it had gotten wrong. But the version you've heard? That's not the full picture. Most people outside the offshore world imagine the lifeboat as a panic button, something you reach for when everything else has already failed. The reality is the opposite. The freefall system is the primary evacuation method. It is the plan. Everything else is secondary to getting 60 people into that capsule and away from the platform in under 60 seconds. The engineering, the testing, the training, the regulation, all of it converges in one sequence. One release, one drop, one impact. And then the engine starts, and you count heads, and you drive away from the fire. Offshore workers do not talk about the lifeboat much, but they check it. Every time they walk past the launch station, there is a glance, a confirmation. Still there, still ready. That's not a typo, by the way. 60 seconds, from alarm to clear water. That is the standard the system is designed and trained and tested to meet. The drop is violent, it is terrifying, and it is exactly right, because surviving is the only outcome that matters. Everything the offshore industry had built was about to work against them, because the next challenge was not the equipment, it was the environment the equipment had to operate in. The safest systems are built on the memory of every failure before them. The freefall lifeboat story isn't unique. Every safety system we trust was forged in loss. If you want to see how another industry faced that same reckoning, that video is on screen now.